This is not about being anti-anything. This is about being pro-girls, pro-females, pro-women, pro-ladies. That's what this is about. You can't be a male, born a male, transitioning to female, and think that you should have the right to compete with women. Not in basketball, not in football, not in boxing, not in the UFC. Hell, not even in tennis.
The WNBA didn't want music, Stephen A. Smith, to say those words, but he did. He didn't hold back when fighting BRITTNey Griner or Sophie Cunningham. This occurred immediately after fresh, startling information about Griner began to circulate, music. The kinds of information that alter your perspective on every WNBA game she has participated in, the titles and gold medals she has won, and her persistent attacks on Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest star. Stay tuned because we're going to explain what's really being said, what Stephen A. Smith believes, and why Caitlin Clark continues getting entangled in it all. Leave a comment below to express your support for Sophie Cunningham. This has nothing to do with being against anything. Being pro-girls, pro-females, pro-women, pro-ladies is what this is all about. This is about that. You cannot claim the right to compete with women if you were born a man and are now a woman. Not in the UFC, not in basketball, not in football, not in boxing. Not even in tennis, to be honest. Let's start by examining the often asked questions by fans before delving into how Smith ruined Griner. You would assume that, like other internet theories, they would disappear after a few years.
This whistle's for a clock issue. Clark's still upset after that hit.
Oh, this is what Caitlin Clark is upset about. The screen set by Griner. Yeah, in a little bit movement with that right.
But instead they continue to expand, gathering new evidence every few months. And you begin to see why this notion has legs when you examine what people are really pointing to. Let's start with the prison music assertion. According to the rumor circulating, Griner was purportedly kept in a men's institution rather than a women's facility while she was abroad. The WNBA staff loves virtue signaling. However, even if BRITTNey's transaction for the Merchant of Death seems absurd, I imagine that a straight white female would still be festering in a Russian prison if that had been the case.
BRITTNey, let me see something real quick. Brick, thank you. Get the hell out of here, yo. Yo. Jab stepping, it's the brick. Swing and miss.
Oh!
Yo, I ain't gonna fake it right now.
That this person is not a female. Firstly, because this was actually posted to BRITTNey's personal Instagram.
The videos come next. For 6 months, a video from Griner's personal social media account remained unreported. Social media platforms use algorithms to automatically identify and eliminate precisely that type of content. Human review is not required. Thus, the question that keeps coming up is straightforward. Why wasn't it reported? According to the prevailing hypothesis, the platform scanned the image, interpreted it as a male chest, and proceeded because that is exactly what the software is designed to do. Music. The same video remains online without a single automatic answer, so that's not just a minor technical issue either. Let me have a quick look at something, flaggy BRITTNey. Thank you, Brick. Obtain what it is. Leave this place immediately. Hey, just a brick, jab stepping. Laughs, well, I'm not.
Look at this finish. Down low. She's been doing this all year. I am so impressed with her inside game. She gets inside that paint amongst the giants and just destroys people. Caitlin Clark, another sweet feed. And watch this. They called a timeout, not a foul. Watch her grab Caitlin Clark's arm clearly. Like they didn't call this a foul. Look at that. Are you kidding me?
I'm going to pretend at this time that this individual is not a woman. First of all, this was uploaded to BRITTNey's personal Instagram account. Bring in the DNA test now. A leaked DNA test that purportedly reveals Griner's genetic makeup as male is the subject of an online rumor. It exists. It has been shared thousands of times and is now included in the same discussion as the Instagram video and the prison accusation. In order to ensure that no explicit content appears on the platform, Instagram employs both manual surveyors and AI detection. Therefore, it is plain that whatever AI detection system was in place when Britney posted this, and it remained up for 106 weeks, Music did not think, oh, this is a bare female chess. We have to take this down. Instead, it presumed Britney was a man. What's odd, though, is this Music. Guerrier's camp has remained silent throughout all of this.
Felt like she took some contact there from Griner, doesn't get the call. It's working the baseline, knocked off the underside of the backboard, did a nice job to recover, and bounces inside, pretty fine to mid.
Nothing on record opposing any of it, no denial, no lawsuit, no statement, or music. Additionally, the WNBA, a company that acts quickly when necessary, such as when they looked into Fever fans' unsubstantiated charges of Angel Ree, Music, has said nothing at all about Guerrier. There is no explanation, no music, statement, and none of these rumors are untrue. When you contrast that silence with the speed at which the league responds to other player-related controversies, it is deafening. The DNA rumor, the shirtless video, and the prison story are all building at the same time.
When it comes to Instagram, they use a combination of like AI detection and plus manual surveyors, but specifically the AI detection to make sure that no explicit content ends up on the platform. So clearly whatever AI detection system was used when Britney posted this and it stayed up for 106 weeks was not like, oh, this is a bare female chess. We have to take this down. It obviously assumed that Britney was male.
And when Sophie Cunningham spoke, that mountain of unresolved issues was precisely what was present in the background. Her remarks were not spontaneous. They found themselves in the midst of an online discussion that had been developing for months. Because of this, what could have been just another athlete's hot take quickly became a national topic, as people immediately linked her remarks to everything that was going on surrounding Guerrier. The WNBA has not communicated with us at all. Whether confirmed or not.
I don't dislike anyone. Like, I think there is room for absolutely everyone here. And I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so, I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women. And I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And, like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone.
What keeps this fire going is the WNBA's complete silence. Additionally, something even more genuine was taking place on the court as all of this was taking place online. Fever supporters witnessed it in real time, so they didn't need to read about it. 14 minutes. Stephen A. Smith spent that amount of time on his own program. Music, he didn't dance around anything for a single second. He stated outright what many people in and around the WNBA have been thinking for some time, but he would not say it on camera. Furthermore, he didn't even target Griner directly at first. Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, was accused of wearing a trans kid belong shirt during a game against the Indiana Fever that was televised nationwide. We must put an end to this. We need to quit pretending that we are advocates for girls like Sophie Cunningham and Raleigh Gaines. You are the Minnesota Lynx head coach, Cheryl Reeve. Doing that is reckless.
We gotta stop this. We gotta stop acting like somebody that's speaking up on behalf of girls, like a Sophie Cunningham, like a Raleigh Gaines, are scourges of the earth. You are Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx. That is an irresponsible thing to do. You are a coach for a female basketball team. Do you not think that the females are being screwed over if they have to compete against a individual born as a male?
You are a female basketball team's coach. If women are forced to compete against someone who is born a man, do you not believe that they are being mistreated? Smith, Music, described it as careless. He made a straightforward case. A women's basketball team is coached by Reeve. Therefore, in his opinion, her role is to defend biological women in that sport rather than make a political statement live on national television while the league's main attraction is on the court. That's what Sophie Cunningham is talking about. He wasn't being subtle about it, he added, pointing directly at the
when it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
moment. Smith called the entire situation selfish, accusing Reeve of having no regard for the WNBA or its sponsors and putting her personal convictions ahead of the league's business. This is what sets Smith's take apart from the typical chatter. This isn't about being anti-anyone, he insisted. He specifically stated that he is pro-girls, pro-females, pro-women, pro-ladies, and that a man who changes from male to female shouldn't compete against women in any sport. Not the UFC, not football, not basketball, and not boxing. Nobody said you can't transition from male to female. The issue here is competing against the music, women, he stated bluntly. Cunningham has been making the same argument, and Smith was aware of it at the time. Music, he presented the matter as an 80-20 issue, which means that he and Cunningham have the support of the great majority.
You trying to tell me that a college player for the men's at a college program anywhere in the country or an NBA player should transition to being a woman and be allowed to compete in the WNBA?
Majority of the public. Additionally, he charged that the league's establishment was utterly disconnected from the true views of Americans on this. You're attempting to convince me that an NBA player or a male collegiate athlete should change their gender and be permitted to play in the WNBA. Smith stands out in this.
If you're a male and transition into female, you should be playing against the women. Nobody said you can't transition from male to female. The issue here is competing against the women. That's what Sophie Cunningham was talking about. That's what Riley Gaines is talking about. How are you, Coach Cheryl Reeve, and you could condone that?
Instance, because he stated the silent part aloud. He asserted that many players in the league have similar sentiments in private, but are afraid to voice them for fear of being blacklisted by their own locker room or dragged online. Smith claimed that by not openly addressing any of this, the WNBA has opened a Pandora's box and that the silence is what is allowing biological female athletes to get, in his words, messed over. Smith wasn't merely expressing his frustration. He clearly
played with BG for 6 years, and so I know her like the back of my hand.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children. And that's, little girls, who are also involved in that category. And so, I stand on what I said, and, I always believe that.
Linked Reeve's shirt to the league's operations by claiming that she took this decision during a nationally televised game against the Indiana Fever, the WNBA's most popular team, and that doing so would lose the league's sponsors, music, and fans. He continued wondering how she could disregard the WNBA and wear that top. Furthermore, she didn't even consider the financial aspect of this. You should play against the women if you are a male who is changing into a female. It wasn't stated that you couldn't change from male to female. Competition against women is the...
And that's just not who I am. I beat to my own drum. And so people are always going to have something to say. You could win the championship. You could be the best at whatever it is. And there's still people who are going to hate on you. And so that's just what this world is. So I'm confident in who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm happy being me. I'm going to continue to be that.
The problem here. Sophie Cunningham was referring to that. Riley Gaines is referring to that. How come you could tolerate that, Coach Cheryl Reeve? Therefore, Smith isn't merely making disparaging remarks about Gurrier's circumstances. He's demanding serious repercussions, supporting Cunningham's precise stance verbatim, and placing Gurrier in her shoes. However, Cunningham's version of this is considerably more blunt, so if you think Smith went too far, wait until you hear what she truly said. Sophie Cunningham was apprehended by reporters immediately following a fever outburst. With a microphone in her face,
BRITTNey Griner, who I can't stand, sad that she's a Baylor grad.
Yeah,
she called her a trash, expletive white girl. That was the lip reading. Yes, trash, white girl. Trash, blanking, white girl. is what she says.
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man.
She answered all of the questions without hesitation. No, I'd prefer not to discuss it. She simply stated what she had been thinking about for some time. I want to shield young girls who shouldn't have to compete against biological guys, whether they are in a locker room or participating in sports. The line is that. Direct, flat, and devoid of shouting. Music, it landed so hard because of that composed delivery. I know BG like the back of my hand because we played together for 6 years. In a similar spirit, you mentioned wanted to shield young females who shouldn't have to fight against biological guys in the ESPN piece. Can you broaden your perspective on that with just music? I mean, I believe I said what I said. It seems like plain logic to me. And I believe I will always hold that belief. I believe that safeguarding children is crucial. And there are young girls who fall into that category as well. Therefore, I always believe what I stated and I stand by it. She meant it when she described it as kind of common sense. According to Cunningham, safeguarding children is important, and young girls fall within that category. In other words, she didn't see this as an abstract policy discussion. It was about real kids in real locker rooms. Additionally, it struck a different note than a tirade since she delivered it so evenly music, without raising her voice or blaming anyone in particular. When a subject is this contentious, people anticipate outrage. Rather, music featured a WNBA player speaking as if she were elucidating a clear point. And within hours, that serenity took over comment sections and group discussions. Cunningham challenged how people were interpreting her position in the ESPN interview that was released the day before. I received a lot of unpleasant comments about how much I detested transgender people. And I think I never said that. She continued. I believe that I am here to show love, but I also believe that love entails honesty and the truth. That's her entire framing strategy. Honesty and love in one statement. She wasn't going to back down from either. It is always seen negatively by everyone. Now that I've said it, a lot of people are speaking up and saying things like, you know what, finally, someone has said something. I don't really consider either side of those issues since I am aware that no matter what I say, I will either receive love or hate. And if I live by love, hate will kill me. And I'm simply not like that. I follow my own musical pulse. People will always have something to say, I guess. Even if you are the best at something and win the championship, there will still be those who despise you. Thus, that's simply the nature of this planet. I am therefore confident in who I am. I am proud of my identity. I'm content with who I am. And I will remain that way. She then addressed the legal aspect of it directly. When it comes just to protecting young girls in sport, music, and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX, Cunningham said, specifically mentioning Title IX. She directly linked the 1972 law to the existence of women's sports as we know them, claiming that's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. You wouldn't hear about any kind of female athletes if Title IX and women's sports weren't protected. That's not a casual remark. That's how she links every record, gold medal, and sold-out arena that women's basketball has ever had to 50 years of legal protection. Additionally, her timing coincided with something more significant. On June 30th, 2026, the Supreme Court issued a decision allowing states to exclude transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. And Cunningham's remarks fit well into the same musical framework that the court had just established. Fans immediately supported her, as did politicians who interpreted her remarks as evidence of a change in public opinion. She was accused of targeting a group that is already under enough scrutiny by other players and commentators, who fiercely retaliated. Both sides made a loud appearance and showed no signs of leaving. I have strong feelings about protecting young girls and women in sports when it comes to music. You have some of the greatest women's athletes, and I believe that's why you have Title N. You wouldn't hear about any kind of female athletes if Title N and women's sports weren't protected. Therefore, I believe that it will be crucial to safeguard music in the future. The important thing is that she never claimed that this was political. For Cunningham, it's not a position against anyone's identity. Rather, it's about safety and justice. She continued to use the word love despite taking a strong stance against competitiveness because of this distinction. And as soon as her remarks were made public, they overtook all of the rumors that were already circulating around Gurrier. The footage, the prison allegations, everything. The story about the purportedly leaked DNA continued to circulate somewhere in there. The fire was already blazing hot when one more log was added. Cunningham did not mention a name. Everyone in the audience already knew exactly who she was referring to, so she didn't need to. I have no dislikes. For example, I believe that everyone is welcome here and that there is space for everyone to be loved. And I genuinely believe that you have a lot in common with a lot of individuals when you put them in the same room and have talks. And music, so I'm there to adore both biological ladies and other people. Additionally, I believe that some liberties must be upheld. And I'm going to stick to it, like I mentioned. I will never waver in my convictions, but I have never once claimed to despise the transgender community. As I mentioned earlier, I believe there is room for everyone. The pattern music actually begins in 2024. Instead of it being discussed as a dirty move, Gurrier turned around after poking Clark in the eye during a game and complained that the crowds Clark brought were too large for her to focus. Take a moment to consider that. The veteran is the one whining about attendance, and the novice is jabbed in the eye. Back then, Clark didn't say much. She simply continued to play, score goals, and draw large crowds. Apparently, Gurrier could not bear it. That's where the tension is. One player was struck, while the other was irritated by the spectators. She seems to have gotten in touch with Grindr there. Doesn't receive the call. Knocked off the backboard's underside while working the baseline. Did a great job getting well and bouncing back inside. I think it's pretty good. The clock issue is the reason for this whistle. After that hit, Clark is still unhappy. Yes, this is the reason Caitlin Clark is unhappy over Gurrier's screen. Yes. And some movement with it, isn't that right? Let's go ahead to 2025. Fever against Griner's former squad, the Atlanta Dream. Additionally, Gurrier gives Clark a body check that appears flawless from a variety of camera perspectives. Not even a foul call or a whistle, much less anything blatant. Furthermore, it is said that Griner cursed at Clark directly from the bench. And once more, nothing took place. No technical, no declared sanction, and no league statement. Gurrier has now touched Clark twice or yelled at her twice. And twice, the officials fail to see it at all. Take a close look at this finish. This is what she has been doing all year. Her inner game has really pleased me. She simply destroys people as she enters that paint amid the giants. Another delicious feed is Caitlin Clark. Watch this too. Instead of calling a foul, they called a timeout. Observe her plainly clutch Caitlin Clark's arm. As if this wasn't considered a foul. Observe that. Are you serious? Then 2026 arrives. Gurrier is currently with the Sun from Connecticut. And she does it once more on June 13th. The screen is moving this time. Clark was hit by full body contact. Additionally, this type of illicit screen ought to raise an automatic alarm. It doesn't. Nothing filthy, nothing flagrant, nothing music. It was caught clean from several perspectives. The referees ignored it as if it had never occurred. It's no longer just one terrible call at this point. The Suns' whole defensive strategy seems to be based on this pattern. Music, stay just below the line that causes the officials to sound the whistle, but foul Clark just enough to annoy her. Clark didn't make any free throws during that contest. Not one. Despite taking illegal screens all night and being bear-hugged off the ball. It's not a clean defense. That's officiating. Clark was essentially free to foul him as a result. This is the part that truly excites fans. On July 22nd, 2026, Clark scores a basket, turns, music, and points at the scoreboard as the Fever defeat the Sun 123-88. That's all. That's the entire offense. Music, she was immediately given a technical foul by the officials. During the entire game, there was actual contact with her. Ignored, pointing at a scoreboard, and immediately penalized. Following the call, Clark claimed that it was illogical and that the official appeared to be trying to become involved in the game. Later, the The league discreetly reclassified it from a personal delay of game to a team delay of game music, which is essentially an acknowledgement that something wasn't right. However, by then, the call had already taken place in front of everyone. I'm unhappy that BRITTNey Griner, who I detest, graduated from Baylor. She referred to her as an exploitative white girl who was trash. The lip reading was that, "Oh my god, white chick, garbage, music." She calls her a trash blinking white girl. In actuality, BRITTNey Griner is a male. It's crazy how Clark continues to play despite everything. She scored 27 points and dished out 11 assists in just 27 minutes during that same overwhelming victory. She was even caught shushing mid-aim, the coach of the opposing team, which she subsequently claimed was worth the technical. She is not out there seeking cheap shots or taking revenge. As the officials allow Griner to get away with contact that would result in a whistle against anybody else on the floor, she continues to ball game after game. Fans eventually stop blaming Gurrier alone and begin to question why the league's officiating appears the way it does. A bogus technical for pointing at a scoreboard, missed body checks, and no free throws despite obvious fouling. It wasn't an awful night. It's a trend. And that's precisely the pattern Stephen A. From the beginning, Smith and Sophie Cunningham have been pointing. Cunningham spoke what many players believe, but keep hidden behind closed doors, and Smith publicly supported her, name by name, on national television. This story won't go away because of that combination. The WNBA can remain silent about Gurrier's situation, the officiating, and everything else. However, silence is no longer neutral. It appears to be a response. Leave a comment below to express your support for Sophie Cunningham. As we bring you all the action and top headlines, don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable all notifications. We'll see you in the next one when you click the video on the screen.